But at critical junctures, their ability to sway Washington has not worked. I mean, when President Trump first went to the Gulf on his first state visit, they thought they convinced him on the importance of a Gaza deal and a nuclear deal with Iran as a basis for stability in the Gulf so everybody could make money. And President Trump instead gave a green light to Israel to attack Iran and then join the fight itself. And these countries have found that increasingly they're not able to dictate the shape of a final deal in Gaza. They're welcome to join it and support it just to remain relevant to the conversation. But what we're seeing, the Board of Peace, the shape of the Gaza plan, Sharm el-Sheikh, none of it is essentially they're doing. Yes, they have some influence, but not tremendous amount of influence. And then within the region, the wealthy oil countries are too small and their militaries are too little to be able to have an impact on the conflicts themselves, right? So they need to stand on the shoulders of Egypt or Turkey, or try to hope that, to keep Iran alive, but they themselves are not big military players. So there is a discrepancy there where the Arabs have armies, they don't have money and they don't have influence, and where they have influence, they don't have armies and they don't have the population size. And in a way, there's a lot of Arab countries, but all of them put together, they're not they're not able to play that kind of a role.
So how do you see U.S. policy evolving in this region? President Trump seems to have his fingers in a lot of pies. He's got a problem with Europe. He's got a problem with Greenland. He's got a problem with his Monroe Doctrine. He's got a problem with rising China, Russia, Ukraine. So how is he going to deal with the Middle East in all this?
I mean, that's itself is one way in which people in the region analyze the situation, that he may get overwhelmed with all the things that he's doing, and that might impact what he does in the Middle East, if he does it, to what extent does he do it, and Middle East could very quickly go to number 3, 4 in terms of priority. It's very clear that he doesn't see the Middle East as essential to his legacy or to his wanting to shape the world order. But where he is engaged in the Middle East, his belief is that he can get to the outcome that he wants without necessarily reflecting what the countries of the region want, with the exception of Israel. So it's his vision for Gaza, which is implementing. It's his vision about how he wants to see an endgame in Iran with the Islamic Republic. He's now showing more and more appetite for using military force to a certain extent. But what is not very clear is that after he's done all of this, what is the shape of the region itself?
My last question, and after which I think we still will have some time to get some people from the audience to ask a few questions. So, Vali, what's happening about the two-state solution? Is it finished? Is it likely to happen? What's the position?
No, I think that the two-state solution has long been finished, except this war has put an end to it. I mean, first of all, territorially, it's not feasible in a way, unless you imagine states as something like the composite sovereignty with two different people living in the same territory, somehow sharing sovereignty. It's almost impossible to imagine how you would carve out a territory, viable territory for Palestinians, unless it's the size of Monaco, with a flag. I mean, in Gaza, pretty much it's gone. Secondly, it's very clear that the consensus in Israel across the board is not in favor of a Palestinian state. The liberal Israelis who supported the idea now believe that it would be a mortal danger to them, that the Palestinians will never reconcile to whatever territory they get. They would always want to take their land back, and giving them a state with all the protections that goes with a state, ability with a state, is basically asking for a continuation of what happened on October 7th onwards. And the Israeli right wing, which never wanted a Palestinian state, wants all of the territory, particularly in the West Bank. and they're also the ascendant force in Israeli politics, and they're in no mood to actually compromise. And then you would say that any deal in any circumstance in any country is a deal making is a question of being forced to arrive at a compromise. I mean, deals are about compromises because whether it's in business or politics, you cannot have everything, so you have to make a deal. Right now, the balance of power in this region does not tell you that Israel has any pressure on it to actually make a deal. Why would it make a deal? Aside from whatever you think about Israel, just generically think. They're winning militarily. The other side has no ability to dictate anything. Europe and the United States are applying no pressure. So exactly why would you give an inch when you can have it all, right? And so then it comes to the question of preaching to them out of the kindness of your heart or think about the future, that's not viable. That's not really an argument. In politics, it's never an argument. And if Israel ever thought that, before it thought that it could have it all, it definitely thinks now that it could have it all. It could actually have more than Palestinian territory. It could also have South Lebanon. It could have additional territory that is taken in Syria. So this idea of a greater Israel, not even in sort of a biblical sense, but in sense of an Israel that has no Palestinians around it, no Palestinian states around it, and then pushes the Arabs much farther away from its borders and has much more defensible borders, is actually much more attractive to them and to their security than any compromise. They view compromise with the Palestinians and Arabs as a cause for insecurity, not security. And security right now, in their view, only comes from their muscle. And there is no reason for them to think otherwise. Nobody's forcing them to think otherwise.
Last question. Does this mean that not only are we stuck with Donald Trump for the next 3 years, Netanyahu is also here to stay and has been vindicated?
Well, I mean, I don't know that much about domestic Israeli politics. I mean, an election is due, but it would be difficult to defeat him just because of the composition of Israeli electorate, etc. But actually, I think at some level, this is too much personalized to Netanyahu. Yes, he may have a sharper edge, greater power, greater inclination on certain policies. But I think he represents essentially much more the mood and where the consensus and center of gravity in Israeli politics is. The idea of no Palestinian state or a Palestinian state is a security threat to Israel, in my opinion, is a consensus. The Knesset voted almost 100% twice that they will not accept a Palestinian state, in fact, bringing a rebuke from Vice President J.D. Vance at one point. So there is no Israeli politician that can run on a platform of negotiating with the Palestinians. Nobody would win an election on that platform. And as I said, there's no outside pressure on Israeli politics to actually force them to blame the United States to do so. So no, I don't see a happy ending right now here. Unfortunately, this sort of juggernaut is out and is running its course. We just have to see where Lebanon, Syria, and Iran would settle.
Thank you. I think we have time for a few questions from the audience. You're the first one to raise your hand. Go ahead. Can somebody give the lady a mic?